and welcome to the Mature Student. I'm sharing my university journey with you as a mature student. I started quite late in life, but I'm loving what I'm experiencing, all the ideas, and it's really helped my journey in business and other parts of my life as well. Now, I'm not sharing because I'm an expert. I'm sharing because I've learned things on the way that I feel might help you as a mature student. Because as a mature person, we have other added issues and challenges that come along with life: family, finances, a career, a relationship, and all the other aspects of our life that might interfere with our mature student journey. So, I'm sharing something today, and I want to talk more about time management. You can see my face there because my time, um, I have to tell you, I get distracted quite easily if I'm not deliberate. Browsing the internet, for instance, I don't do it because of pleasure. I do it because perhaps I'm doing some research, and that research might lead me to a really interesting book or perhaps a video. And then I go off and look at that, and perhaps I watch the video. Before I know it, it's 1.5 hours later, and I haven't actually done what I set out to do in the first place. I wonder if you relate to that. The other thing that sometimes happens is if my phone is on, my mobile, or if you're in America, cell phone, messages come through. We use an app called WhatsApp, and messages come through, and so I'm looking and flicking through those messages, and before I know it, another 15-20 minutes has gone. And what about the household? Sitting in the house doing some work, you find that the floor is not as clean as you really want it to be. So what do? Pick up a mop and a bucket and start cleaning, and then you find that things need washing up and things need putting in the washing machine, and before you know it, another hour has gone, and you have achieved very, very little. But there are other things within time management. I'm not really a lastminute.com person, but I can be a procrastinator, especially if I'm avoiding um, maybe reading a piece of work that I don't really understand or really can't make sense of. I'll stop and I'll do something else and then hopefully go back to it later, which often does not happen. These days, it's less rare because the higher the standard, the more reading you've got to do. So I've got into the habit, but it's still something I recognize, and I wonder if you do as well. Now, I talked about lastminute.com. It's a bit of a tongue in cheek joke because it actually happens to be a real company. But we talk about lastminute.com because things are left until the very last moment. And that is a very big mistake. And I'll tell you for why. I remember I did a couple of really, really good essays, got very good marks, but one of them I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because I left it lastminute.com. And so it meant that I could not really check and edit my work efficiently and effectively. And I didn't pick up some of the mistakes that I'd made, not only basic things like the bibliography, but other items such as, did it make sense? Was the syntax flowing? All those things you will pick up if you start the work at the right time, not last minute, not a few days before. You can't edit your work efficiently. I mentioned distractions earlier, and that all leads to stress, which you really don't need. And of course, your deadlines might not be met. Now, studies have shown that students with really good time management have a better chance of doing well in their studies. Well, it is logical, it makes sense, doesn't it? Time management for me, I think, has to be really deliberate and really intentional. So here's one time management technique that I've picked up. I had a short workshop at my university, and I've since done some research on it, and it's a real technique, really simple, that you can use if you've never used it before, especially if you get distracted. So what is it? It's called the Pomodoro technique, and it's a time management method developed by Franco Cirillo. It uses a timer to break down your work into intervals around about 25 minutes, separated by short breaks. Now, we could all do that, couldn't we? So, if you've got a piece of work, I've got a document that I've got to read 25 pages of, for example, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get through that plus the other items I've got? I'm working on a dissertation, and so this would really help you break it down, but break it down into chunks or bite-sized pieces. There's this old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's exactly what this Pomodoro technique does. So here you can see the Pomodoro technique. I think it was developed in the 80s or something, but it's not, the important thing is you can see in the middle, there's this kind of old-fashioned timer that you get in kitchens, and that was how it was used. And if you think about timers now, most of them are on a smartphone, an Android or an iOS. So we could use that, for example, but it shows you doing the work in that little clipboard, taking it all in, the face of the man there, and then you've got the timer, time running out, and then here you've got the target, which is what you've decided to do in that little 25-minute period. Now, you might need 2, 3, or 4 of those 25-minute periods during the day, but your reward is that you get a break. And what I have decided to do in my break, and I maybe take 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes in between, is to do something that will push me to where I want to be in another area of my life. So if I have to go and do the washing up, that might be the time to do it. Or it might be that I watch part of a program that I want to watch on repeat, something that will be completely different to your studies. So whatever your game is, you might be somebody that likes knitting, or go for a short walk and come back and do the rest of your work. Whatever it is, you need to reward yourself, because it's actually more motivating when you come back to sit down and focus. It really does work. I've used it myself, and as I mentioned before, I use it on my mobile, my cell phone, my Android, and you could do the same if you've got perhaps an alarm clock if you don't use a phone. So it works because it's small tasks, such as, as I mentioned before, reading a book or writing an abstract, and you can do it in bite-sized pieces so that you get to that big main piece of work. It's short enough so distraction can't get in the way, and that's absolutely key. So that's more time management with me, the mature student, and my journey through university. Join me again. As I don't plan these sessions, it's just as things that occur to me. But follow and like this, and maybe share it with other friends.